welcome back to Email Etiquettes. Today we're going to discuss the words that may cause waste of time. Here, when we are talking waste of time, such words should be avoided while you're writing an email. Words like statistically, so, as you know, basically, pretty much. There are other words which can be avoided, and when used in an email, they're just additional words. The sentence without these words also make perfect sense. Talking about the greetings. When we're talking about greetings, why do you think greetings are really important when it comes to emails? That's basically because greetings break the ice. You're interacting with the first person and it makes the person comfortable. Make sure you're reflecting the feel of the entire email in the greetings. You're reflecting your relationship with the recipient here. It defines the tone of the email. It might influence the receiver's perspective of you. Maybe the receiver already has a preset mindset about things, but after reading your email, he or she is influenced. Here, without greetings, your email may appear to be abrupt or even rude. You can run the risk of sounding unprofessional as well. Talking about the professional domain, it becomes very important that you take care of these minute things. Now when we are talking about the greetings while drafting an email, one of the following can be used: dear, the name of the person, or dear name and the other name, hello, then followed by the name, or hi, followed by the name, or simply the name. You can even add sir or ma'am if you are not too sure of the name to be used. Next, when we are talking about the recipients, if you have three or more recipients for a single email, what type of greetings can you use? Hello, everyone, or the name of the group or the team, hi, team, hello, all, hi there, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, etc., depending on the time of the day you're writing this email. Also, here, if you're talking about the time, you also have to be careful about the time at the other end. Usually, when we are sending emails to clients who live abroad, we have to make sure we are talking of the same time. If you're not too sure who the recipient is, or if you're not aware of the name of the recipient, that is where these greetings can follow. Dear sir, dear madam, dear sir or madam, if you're not too sure of the gender, simple hi, hello, dear hiring manager, that is the designation of the person, greetings. This is the safest option here because when you're not aware of the gender, when you're not aware of the designation you're writing to, greetings or simple hi or a hello will do. When we are talking about the language to be used, we have to make sure every time in the professional front we are using formal language only when it comes to email writing. This is basically because informal language is inappropriate while emailing in the business setup. It might ruin your business pitch. It might sound too casual and you might sound unprofessional there. You will come across as sloppy while introducing yourself to someone higher in the status in the job industry. The person would think that there are no etiquettes being followed in writing this email. To keep a line drawn between casual and formal way of communication. When we are talking about such communications, we have to make sure we're drawing the perfect line. We are not crossing the boundaries at any point in time. When we are talking about the difference between formal and informal language, which one to be used when? Definitely a formal language to be used at places where we are talking about the professional front, whereas the informal language to be used at places where we're talking about the informal communication. Formal writing is straight and to the point. You do not have to overload it with language. It is less detailed. Informative sentences are written in passive voice. Usually, you must have heard to be using the active voice. But when the information has to be provided, that is where detailing is required and passive voice is used. Informal language is descriptive in nature, wherein automatically you are beginning and ending in a descriptive tone. Sentences are written in active voice. There are examples for the same. Let's understand the difference between the two through these examples. The formal one says, Crystal's reservation has been confirmed for Friday. If you see the sentence type, very simple, crisp, and short. On the other end, when we have an informal tone, that is where it says, Crystal received a confirmation email saying that her reservation has been confirmed for Friday. Look at the detailing in the entire sentence, the description in the entire piece. When we are supposed to avoid a few blunders when we are talking about formal emails. So let's see what these blunders are. One, colloquial words. Wanna for want to. You all, y'all. Contractions. Can't, didn't, haven't. Cliches. I have mailed you the report in a jiffy. So here I am talking about the basic structure of my sentence versus I will email you the report as soon as possible. Using abbreviations like LOL, ASAP, XOXO, PS, etc. Imperative words or sentences. Stop, do this, go ahead. You might sound rude to the other person here. That's the reason it's said that you need to avoid these sentences or these words or phrases at the most. A few language tips that have to be followed. When we're talking about the language tips, we're talking about everything, right from grammar to your tone, to your style, to your spellings, everything. Always use full sentences. Do not break your sentence in the middle without sharing the information. But you also have to make sure here that your sentence is not too long and too much information is not stuffed into one sentence. Avoid contractions and abbreviations. We've already discussed this. When you're using contractions and abbreviations, you sound unprofessional. Use correct grammar and syntax. Proofreading comes out to be really important here. Why? Because when we are talking about proofreading, we are talking about how are we making sure that we are making no grammatical mistakes, we are making no spelling mistakes, no punctuation mistakes, etc. Use the punctuations wisely. Do not overuse the punctuations. Do not add too many full stops, commas, exclamatory marks, etc. Avoid archaic phrases wherein they have become redundant. Break down your email into shorter paragraphs so that the readability improves. Prompts to take care of. So, when we are talking about the few pointers that we have to take care of, is basically in the feeding portion. You should know the difference between a CC and a BCC. The CC is the carbon copy, and the BCC is the blind carbon copy. The person who's the reader will not be able to see the persons in BCC. Keep it short. You do not have to over elaborate. You do not have to keep it without sharing the right information. Get yourself a proper email ID that's a professional email ID. Avoid slangs and emoticons, especially in the professional domain. Next, when we're talking about the punctuations, let's recapitulate what we learned. We learned that we have to balance the email. We have to make sure that we are not leaving any space before the comma. Space to be left only after the use of comma. Do not overuse the exclamatory marks or full stops or question tags. Get your knowledge of colons and semicolons straight. When do you have to use the colons versus when do you have to use the semicolons? Do not confuse them with each other. This is basically when we are using a semicolon, we are talking about two interrelated or dependent sentences, whereas a colon is simple for elaboration. The difference between CC and BCC. CC refers to the carbon copy. You use it basically when you want your recipients to see the others on the mailing list and get notified by when someone hits reply all. Whereas my BCC stands for my blind carbon copy. It is used to make the list invisible and not to let the person who is at the receiving end to update or answer on the email thread. He will never get to know who are the people in the BCC because it's a blind copy. How to keep your entire message short without losing on efficiency and effectiveness. When we are talking about efficiency as well as effectiveness, that is where I have to make sure that I am making a list of proper things. One, stay away from writing emails which are long and difficult to comprehend. If it is a long message, I should be breaking it down into smaller paragraphs. If I am not breaking them down into shorter paragraphs, my readability would be a great concern. Why? Because a person who is reading expects you to have information in detail but not clubbed together. Make your language and format as clear and readable as possible. Do not make it clumsy. Only put the necessary amount of information in your email, what is required. If you think that there are more details that have to be shared, use an attachment. Nobody is willing to read through a lot of text just to get to the point. Make sure you're keeping it short and simple. Decide when to write an email and when to go for a face to face conversation. If you think that the information is short and can be easily displayed and covered through the email, bingo, go. But if you think that that might cause confusion, etc., go for a face to face conversation or a telephonic conversation. Do not send emails, especially to the same person, for every little query that you have. Create an outline, ask all your questions in one go. Form your questions or arguments, put them together in an orderly fashion, and then hit the send button. Again, here, proofreading is really important. The basic do's and don'ts of language. When it comes to language, you have to make sure that your email goes error free. Why? Because it caters to your image there. The reader will form a perception about you. Make it a habit to proofread after writing each email. Pay closer attention to the proper names because if the name goes wrong, the person wouldn't be interested in reading any further. Stick to a maximum of 2 fonts in an email. The first one that you're using typically for the headers and the second one for the main body. Do not mix and match arbitrarily the fonts. Do not write in all capitals or capitalize each word for emphasis. This is basically done when you are talking about headings, when you're explaining pointers. Otherwise, this should be avoided. Make use of bold, italics, and underline features to highlight any important text. When we are talking about any important text, we are talking about texts that have to provide relevant information. Do not bloat the body copy with text, images, or other materials. You have to make sure only the required details are being shared. Always double check on attachments. You have to make sure that if you have asked that you are supposed to attach the attachments, that is where you're doing so. Before sending the hit button, you're also checking that you've placed the right attachments. Do not mention an attachment in your email and then forget to send it. That's most important. The level of personal touch. We have to make sure that we're maintaining a kind of dignity. We're not crossing the borders. So, here are a few tips that have to be kept in mind to add personal touches to your email without crossing those boundaries. Use your real name, but not your brand name. Stop relying on fancy newsletter templates. These templates are short lived. Address your subscribers by their first name. Ask them often to reply to your emails as a call to action. Create a welcome series that includes personal information that makes it more relatable for the person who's reading it. Why do you think that we have to create this kind of a personal touch when it comes to email? The following are the reasons for the same. Personalized emails stand out within the inbox as highly relevant and tailor made materials. The body remains the same for every consumer, but the name changes. Personalized emails make an email more likely to be opened and clicked on. So, here you're making sure that whenever a person is opening your email, that is where they are talking about your brand name, they are checking the newsletters and other details. Personalized emails strengthen customer experience by sending the right content to the right people at the right time. This is really important when it comes to sharing of emails under the marketing domain. Now comes the question that how is it that we can make these emails personalized? So there are a few techniques that have to be followed for the same. Number one, ask the right questions. Make sure that if a user has used some product, ask for a review. Ask how did the user like or dislike the product. Build customer personas before you actually go out for a service or a product into the market. These personas will give you an idea as to how people would react to it. Make use of location as well as time. Make sure that here, when we are talking about festivities, etc., that is where gifting items are supposed to be used, your product might be used there. And even the time when we are sending this. Midnight emails, mostly people do not read. Set up automated behavioral trigger emails that would make the person respond to the email. Personalize your business and make sure that you're making the person realize that the business cares for him or her. Match personalized emails and landing pages. So you have to make sure that you are matching the two. There are a few advantages of personalizing emails. It displays the humanness of your brand. The relativity increases and even reliability increases. Customers like hearing their names often. It makes customers feel important. They feel related to the brand. It helps you not to miss out on opportunities. Customer experience is a main driver of growth there. Now, for instance, you're sharing these emails over their birthdays, over their anniversaries, or their special days, the special festivities. That is where you're adding a personal touch to the entire piece. The level of personal touch. When we are talking about the personal touch as a whole, you have to make sure you're following the following tips. Use a clear subject line which is absolutely crisp and delivers your message clearly. Use classic fonts and not fancy ones which are not readable. Review your email before you hit the send button. Your proofreading, analyzing is really important here. Add your recipient at the end so that you are making sure that after the greetings, you're mentioning his or her name in the salutation. Avoid using reply all. That's a big blunder that people commit. Set a response time and make sure you're doing it on the stipulated time. Recognize when email isn't productive. So you have to make sure you are framing it in such a fashion that it turns out to be professional as well as productive. Why to be professional on emails? That's basically because when we have to talk about professionalism, we are talking about multiple domains, multiple layers. We have to ensure effectiveness of business communication. The business needs to contact its customers. It needs help. It needs to help employers make the difference between good and bad employees. The first impression is always the last impression. You demonstrate your intelligence through this process. Good writers are always reliable in companies on the professional forefront. It helps to keep good records. So, when we are talking about all these things, we have to make sure that we are creating the entire piece in a way which suits my organization, which highlights my professionalism, and which is reliable and efficient and effective. You boost your professional confidence once you make sure that you're doing the right thing. There are a few points that need to be taken care of. Number one, do not send email without a subject line. So, when we are talking about subject lines, we have seen over modules that they are really very important. Do not send email to wrong recipients. That is a big blunder being committed. You would be tagged as unprofessional. Forgetting to add attachments and sending or writing so in email. Here, you have to make sure that while proofreading, you're not just reading the body, you're also seeing the attachments. Do not send email with wrong salutation. You're writing to a female and you're writing Mr. XYZ. Check for spelling and grammatical errors. Make sure, keep a double check that whatever you're writing has been vetted by you. Do not hit the reply to all in place of reply. Do not use your signatures repeatedly in email threads. Remove them. A single signature gone in one of the emails proves that you are authenticating all further emails that are coming as threads. There are a few elements that have to be included when we are talking about the entire closure. Let's recapitulate them quickly. Subject line, right tone, right punctuation, right grammar, signature, and call to action. Let's have a quick recap of them. My subject line needs to be short, tempting, crisp, and professional. Using the right tone, I have to make sure I'm not using single words. I am elaborating my feelings. And the tone that I'm using should be polite. Right punctuation, I am not overusing punctuations. I'm using the right one at the right place. Right grammar, that falls under my proofreading content, which has to be taken care of. My spellings, etc., also have to fall under the same domain. My signature should go only once and not with every thread email. My call to action should be clear as per my demands to the reader. There are a few elements that have to be excluded from the same. One, choosing a bad subject line. How do I identify whether the subject line I've chosen is bad or good? Read it. Read it from the point of view of a viewer. If you think that the subject line that you've chosen is inappropriate, change it immediately. Sending at a bad time. Maybe it is that time when people are unhappy or they are not at all in the office domain, that is the festivity time. Do not send your emails then. Reply to all at all the times is annoying for the people who are there in the BCC list. Neglecting your signature, either you're not adding them or you're adding them with every email. Both of these are a big no no. Starting with whom to whom it may concern every time is a big blunder. For the first time, when you're reverting over this, it's great when you're not aware who the other person is. But when the second time the person is reverting, please make sure you're noting the details there. Working with too many bad fonts, please make sure maximum two fonts are there to be used. Let's go through a quick recap of whatever we learned in the entire module. 1. We understood the difference between CC and BCC. CC, visible to everybody. BCC is a blind carbon copy and the reader doesn't get to know about it. What greetings should be used when you are unsure of the recipient's name? That is where you're not aware of the name, you're not aware of the gender. You either use simple hi or hello, or you simply write the designation of the person. Why are emails getting important? The greetings are important basically because when we are talking about the greetings, they are icebreakers. They set the tone and the mood of the email. A bad greeting would lead to a bad email altogether. Why should you avoid using need or no in an email? Because these words have negative connotations. People take them the other way around. That's the reason we need to use better words which are more polite. Why is it important to follow email etiquettes? We need to follow these etiquettes because when we are talking about writing an email, it's all about ethics, it's all about values, it's all about the persona that the reader will create in his mind for me as a writer. What can make you sound rude over an email? Writing single words like sure, okay, no, etc. With this, we are ending this module. Thank you so much. Stay tuned.